Hey, this is Chris from JamPlay.com, and welcome to Lesson 1 in our Style of the Edge lick pack. Now, in this lesson, we're going to use the main verse hook, as a way to figure out how to get our delays set up. You're going to use the delays throughout this entire lick pack and well beyond. And so, in this particular lesson, we're not going to go over so much the playing of the lick as much as we are going over how to dial in the timing, how to dial in the exact effect for the ambience and the sound, the tonal characteristics that the Edge gets when he does these cool dotted eighth kind of delay things. So if you have a delay pedal or a delay effect, on a multi-effects unit or modeling box that has tempo and note values set up already, where you can just select, your tempo, which, by the way, this track, the entire tempo is at 108. The quarter note equals 108. If you have a box that kind of does it for you, you just select the tempo, you select what the note value is, and in this case, and in a lot of these parts, we're talking about a dotted eighth delay. If you don't have that, if you're, a lot of older delay pedals, a lot of analog stomp boxes, and even some digital units don't have a tempo setting. They might have a tap tempo, but they don't have a BPM readout. They might just have a millisecond readout. So if you want to use the delay pedal that you have, or maybe you like the sound of a particular delay pedal, but you don't know how to get there using tempo delay, that's what this section is about. So let's first talk about how to dial in the exact tempo on a delay unit that doesn't have a BPM reading. We're going to start with quarter note delay, and then we'll work our way down. Now, if you know the BPM of the song, in this case, it's 108, 108, the quarter note equals 108. You're going to take the number 60,000, you're going to divide by the BPM, so 60,000 divided by 108, and that's going to give you your millisecond reading. So you would set the millisecond readout on your delay pedal to exactly what that number is. That's going to give you your quarter note delay. Now, if you want an eighth note delay, you're going to first multiply the BPM, which in this case is 108, times 2. You'll take that number and you'll divide it into 60,000. The resulting number is going to be your eighth note delay. Now let's move on to the 16th note delay. A 16th note delay is just 4 times what a quarter note delay is. So if you've already done your quarter note delay, you're going to take that number in milliseconds and divide it by 4. Not multiply it, that's going to give you a slower delay. You're going to divide it by 4, and that's going to give you a smaller number. That's going to give you a 16th note delay. Now let's talk about the dotted eighth. The dotted eighth is probably the trickiest to dial in, and it's really the trickiest to feel initially, but probably the coolest sound, and what a lot of the parts in this lick pack and in the Style of the Edge, Pink Floyd, some of these other guys, they use it a ton. A dotted eighth note is simply an eighth note plus a 16th note. So it's longer than an eighth note, shorter than a quarter note, but it does some really cool things when you're playing in time with the track. So if you think about, you've got 4 16th notes total. In every repetition of a beat, the dotted eighth is going to be the third 16th note repetition, if you want to think of it like that. So if we're doing 1 E and a, you're going to be on not 1, not E, not and, but a. You're going to be on the of every beat. So 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4 E and a, 1 E and a, 2 E and a, 3 E and a, 4. It's a very syncopated feel. All right? So because of that, what we do to calculate that time in milliseconds is you take the quarter note delay time that you calculated and you multiply that by 0.75. Or simply take your 16th note delay and multiply that by 3. Now, if you do have a delay pedal that doesn't have any readouts on it at all, but perhaps it just has a tap tempo, a lot of times when you're tapping something to a track, it's easy to get the quarter note delay, probably pretty easy to tap out the eighth note delay, but tapping out a 16th note delay is extremely difficult. Sometimes, depending on the tempo of the song, even if you get down with your thumb and try to tap real fast, it's It's just hard to be accurate with that. So a dotted eighth delay is actually quite difficult too if you're trying to tap to a quarter note feel, because it doesn't necessarily, the delay that you're going for often pulls the track. It's not present in the track that you're playing with. So what I like to do is use a metronome. Use a metronome, on your phone, or just grab anything where you can dial in a precise tempo. And set the tempo, tap it on your metronome or dial it in. In this case, it's 108. Then multiply that tempo by 4, and you'll get, and then put that into your metronome, and you'll get a 16th note click. Then you just have to listen really hard to tap every 3 clicks. That will dial in your dotted eighth delay on your delay pedal without a millisecond reading and without a BPM reading. So grab your delay unit, whatever else you may need, your metronome, your calculator, and set up a dotted eighth delay and an eighth delay. And then in the next lesson, we're going to look at actually playing the line, dialing in the tone, the unique modulation settings, and we're going to play the lick. Hey, this is Chris from JamPlay.com, and in the last lesson, we spent some time looking at how to set up various tempo delays, whether you're using a box that kind of does it all for you, whether you have a millisecond readout, or whether you just have one of those old classic pedals and you want to dial in a specific tempo delay. Now, on this lick, we're using a dotted eighth delay. And the dotted eighth, just to review a little bit, is an eighth note plus a 16th note. So when you're playing it, it gives this nice kind of syncopated feel. Now this lick, in order to get the sound we get, in addition to, of course, the notes we're playing, we're doing a couple different things, and I want to go over those, and then I'll teach you the actual notes. First of all, we're using a strat, and we're on position number 2, so not the bridge, but 1 up, with the tone knob rolled back just a little bit. And in this case, we have the volume all the way up. And we're on a fairly clean sound. A Vox type model, or cleaner Fender sound, will work very well. There is a little bit of overdrive, if I really, but it's not very much. I mean, it's pretty clean. The Edge, when he's playing lines like this, he'll take a pick that has some friction or some grip on the wide side. And he'll turn it around, and he'll use the friction-y side or the grippy side, and he'll pick the notes. Listen to the difference. Versus the other thing that you want to do is when you pick each note, you want to go very far in so that you're getting a lot of that scrape. Versus so if you really want that authentic kind of scratchy sound, it just adds an element of percussion to what you're playing. As opposed to one's a lot softer than the other, and it brings out kind of each individual note, and with the delay just works so nicely. So let's talk a little bit about the actual delay sound. I'm using here an actual, like a stereo digital delay, and it's ponging or ping-ponging back and forth to the speakers. That's a really cool sound. It's tied up so that each repetition kind of goes to one speaker and then it goes back and forth. You don't have to do that. Traditionally, the Edge would have used more of just an analog sound with some mod. And I do have some mod. If you listen very carefully here to each repeat, there's a tiny, tiny bit of pitch variance. So you're not getting the exact note. Now, analog delays, older analog delays, or models of older analog delays, have a much more drastic mod sound where it pulls it out. It's like a chorus effect that happens on the repeats. That can be pretty cool, but you want to be careful not to add too much of that because it can make the original line that you're playing go slightly out of tune or make it sound like it's going slightly out of tune. So I'm using just a little bit because I want the clarity. Now, I've also, for this line, have a fair amount of feedback. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Really, you hear 6 repeats, 7 total. You have to experiment with that in your own playing and see which or what kind of repeats work for what you're doing. For this particular lick, because we're holding and playing notes that kind of go well with each other, it's okay to have it kind of trail on and off. But if you're doing a lot of things where you're playing more scale type things, which we'll get into later, you want to have less repeats. All right, let's look at the actual lick now. Starts here on the 10th fret, and we're playing an E sus4 sound over the E chord. Now this would be the 4th in the key, and then we resolve to playing the 3rd. This, of course, is the root. So, and we're playing mostly 8th notes with this hand. Okay, then we play these 2 notes, 11th fret, 3rd finger, 9th fret, 1st finger. We play that over the A. Then what's kind of cool about this line, and this is something that you'll hear guys like U2 or anybody who's copied that kind of sound, they're going to go back to the same form here. Now, when you play this over an E chord, it creates that E sus4 sound and resolves to E. When you do the same thing, it creates a C sharp minor 6 sound, resolving to C sharp minor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold a C sharp note in the bass, and I'm going to go back and forth so you can hear what it's doing here in this context. It's kind of cool, huh? Versus E. It's a simple thing, but it creates some familiarity. You can use the same line and just kind of acknowledge that the bass note is changing. You don't even have to, in fact, you shouldn't play the bass notes in this line. This is a floaty line kind of over the rest of the music. So. Now, essentially here we're playing a B5 chord. Playing an inverted, here's your 5th, we're playing the top 2 notes. We finished the first round off with 2 12th fret harmonics on the B and the E string. So the very first repetition, I'm going to play it without the delay so you can hear how the notes are working, and then I'm going to play it with the delay. It's amazing what adding that delay does when that dotted 8th note is properly dialed in. It's kind of hard to play without the track sometimes. It's really important in lines like this one that you acknowledge what you're doing with your pick hand and you let the delay play. You don't want to overplay. When you're doing lines, you know, that can get too messy when you add too many. You want to make sure that you're leaving holes for that delay to come out and do its thing. Okay, second half. Okay, let's kill the delay again so we can kind of hone in on the notes. So we repeat the first part, and that's the turnaround then that goes kind of into the chorus. So the whole thing without the delay. Once more with the delay and with the track.